So let's get started with the math used within the material editor. So here we have this open and empty scene. What we will do is, let me go to our materials folder. We're gonna right click, go here to material, and we'll just type in math. Double click, and it's gonna load up the material editor. Okay, so one of the first things you should know is with the math system, the number 0 and the number 1 are designated by a particular color because it's based off of binary as well. So 0 is black and 1 is white. And anything between them is the same kind of gradation between black to white. So if we do a 0.5, it would be gray. So say if we hit 1 for a scalar constant, if we go right here and we just open this, you can see that it's black because it's 0. And then if I change this to a 1, well, first it does it in red because considering that this constant is not a part of the 3 values, it would just make it like this. But if I do like this, where I do a 3 constant, and I hit 1, 1, 1, it makes it white. The reason why this thing turns red is because red is usually the first channel in RGB, and that this is usually considered one channel and not just one color. So let me just delete this. And so when we first get started with math, there's going to be a couple shortcuts to know. So if you hold down A and you click anywhere inside of here, you'll get an add node. If you do M, multiplication, D for division. Well, sadly, when we do S, it doesn't do that. It just does parameter. So what we have to do is we have to right click here, or you can go in the palette menu and just type in subtraction. And there we go. So we have our 4 basic math nodes. So let's do some very, very quick math. Thankfully, this is not like trigonometry or calculus or anything like that. This is me just doing some very basic math. Next week, however, we will go over a bit of trigonometry because we will be working with sine and cosine. So let's add 1 plus, we'll do 2. 1 plus 2. Now when we do this, it keeps the same colors. But then if we go and subtract, say 2.5, grab here, we'll do 2.5. See, the value is now more significantly dark because it's doing a 0.5 or a closer to black color of red. If we did the same thing, like say we switched out these, let's try 3 and 3 and 3. So this one's 1. This one is 3. And then this one will be 2.5. Instead of that, 2.8, 2.8, 2.8. Where is my start preview node? I'm missing up on one. Wait. Oh, I'm dumb. I put 3 instead of 2. Okay, that's why. There we go. So now we're getting a gray value. I was thinking, like, why is that not working? It's because of my math. So so if we do this, this makes 3, and if we do minus 2.8, this is a 0.2 color. But if we go back to, like, say 2.5, and 2.5. There we go. So that's a 0.5 grayscale value. Same thing if we, let's go in here, since now this is 0.5, let's do by value of 2. So you can even do, actually let's do this one scalar, 2. You can even do these basic values as well, these one channel constants. So now I brought it back to 1 because this is at 0.5, we times it by 2, that makes 1. And then this is, I think this is how math works. So if we divide with 0, we get 1. I think let's do, oh man, math is hard. Let's divide it by 2. Or actually, no, let's divide it by 4. So we divide it by 4, we get 0.25. Because 1 divided by 4 is a fourth. And then we'll times this by 0. And we get black. Because anything times 0 is 0. And then you can just plug that into the basic math, and there you go. And let's turn off stop preview. So yes, that's more or less the basics of the math involved. Another thing to note is, let me pull this up, is a append value or append vector. An append vector, what this is, it appends 2 channels instead of 1. So normally when you do, say, a vector 3 or a vector 2, that's just considered one value. It's not trying to add anything or change anything. What this does is, let's say, I'm going to make this basic value 0.5, 0.5, and 1. So the color that we get is this, it's a light purple. This is the basic normal map color value. So this is the value you would get. So what we do here is, let me delete that. Let's do 2 different vectors. Let's start off with a 0.5 and a 0.5. So the color that we're going to get is this yellow color because we're mixing, in a sense, red and green. Because what append does is it appends 2 values as 2 separate channels at the same time instead of just 1. So the first channel, A, is always, when you do it like this, it's going to be red and then green. Let's say you add a third append and you attach it here. Then we add another value. And let's do 1. This is going to be the blue channel because it goes in the order of channels. So that's one way, in a sense, you want to make a normal map. But this is the basics of an append vector. Okay, so our last one we're going to do, I need a texture for this. Let me find, oh, we'll just do this 2K displacement texture. The last one we're going to go over is clamp. So you'll see that clamp has these 3 different values. So let's plug this guy in. Looks like nothing's wrong so far. So let's go in and do 0.2 and we'll do 0.8. Actually, no, let's do 0.6 and 0.4. So you'll see, actually, let me start preview and we change this to a square. You'll notice that there's nothing really going on here. Actually, maybe let's do unlit. It looks very gray. And the reason for that is, so how clamp works is these 2 values, this min and this max, it takes the values, like say min, anything that is below this number, it clamps to this 0.4. So if there's anything darker, like anything that's a black or a very dark gray, clamps all the way up to a 0.4. Whereas with max, it does the same thing, but with any value that's above it. So anything that was, say, a 1, like a white or very close to light gray, gets clamped down to a 0.6. So if I change this to a 0.2, we're starting to get back these darker values again, because this is what the original was. This is going to be our 0.6 value, and everything here is a lot darker, so it's going to keep showing back up. So if I do 0, all the darker values show back up again. Same thing like if I do 0.8, all of our lighter values are starting to come back from the center. Clamps are very good if you want to take something like one of these color values and clamp it down to a specific value so that you can either use it within the same math equation, or you can also clamp it down in case you don't want to have certain colors be too dark or too light. Because since we're working in a PBR system, you don't want to have a too dark or too light of a material, because it's going to reflect that within the engine, and you can't truly have a all black or all white type of material. You would only get these dark values from the highlight or from the shadows within the lighting scenario. So that's one of the reasons why we will use clamp, either with mathematics or with just clamping your values if you don't want them to be too overexposed or underexposed. But this is the very, very basic setup for the mathematics system within Unreal Engine's material shader. The next part I'm going to go over is the master materials and how we will also be using these kinds of constants and math nodes to make a basic prop master material shader.